Hello, and welcome to Return to the Fire with Wild Women, the podcast that seeks to reignite wisdom aligned with the regeneration of people and the planet. I'm your host, Kim Carfor, founder of the 501c3 nonprofit Wild Women, and I'm so glad that you joined us today. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Return to the Fire with Wild Women. I'm so excited to have our guest, Dr. Heather Eaton. Heather Eaton is a professor in the Conflict Studies program at St. Paul University. Her work is focused on peace studies, gender, ecology, religion, animal studies, and nonviolence. Your PhD is in ecology, feminism, and theology, central to what we're doing here on Return to the Wild Women. So you've written plenty of books. I'm just going to mention a few of them. Ecofeminism and Globalization, which was co-written by one of the Wild Women nonprofit's board members, Lois Lorentzen.
Nice.
Advancing Nonviolent and Social Transformation, Introducing Ecofeminist Theologies. And then on a more personal note, you grew up on Lake Huron. And in your free time, you canoe, sail, travel, study elephants in Africa, birdwatch, garden, and cook. And I remember one of the first times that I met you, Heather. I want to call you Dr. Eaton because I want to keep referring to you as this powerhouse in the field, but I also,
We're friends, Kim. You have to call me Heather.
okay, Heather. Just so the audience knows we're balancing these two worlds. But I do remember the first time I met you, and when I was doing an introduction, I said that I grew up in Port Huron, Michigan, and on Lake Huron. And then you gave me this look that really just stuck with me, and you said the earth knows no bounds. And I thought that was one of the most gentle, generous, and kind ways of referring to uh, friendship and allyship. And so, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to get into this conversation. So, I think where I want to start, because you have been so influential in the field, I use your introducing ecofeminist theologies in my class because you're such a clear writer. And I want you to share with the audience this idea of ecofeminism because this podcast was really inspired by the academic field of ecofeminism. And since you've been involved in it for so long, I know it's changed based upon the different waves of feminism. And if you could speak to its current relevancy, how it's changed over time, that would be a great place to begin.
Sure. So in the 1970s, going back a bit, when people were trying to understand how does domination actually work? So of course, this is post-Marxist. This is the era of liberation theologies. This is the era of taking liberation movements seriously. The domination of women and the domination of the natural world, it became clear that they had deep connections. And so all this research was done in the 1970s and 1980s, excavating
Mm.
what was this women nature connection, especially in Western patriarchal cultures. So, in the language of someone we both respect, Val Plumwood, of hierarchical dualisms and how they actually work. So, in patriarchal ideology, men are above women, culture's above nature, mind is above emotions and body, God is juxtaposed to the devil, but heaven is juxtaposed to earth. So these dualisms became very clear that they function. They're not just a theory, they're embedded in Western philosophy, Western Christianity, but they're also embedded in how we live. So ecofeminism came out of understanding, first of all, doing this initial work of excavation, and then understanding that women and nature get connected and then both subjugated. So they're of lesser value than men and culture in patriarchal circles, in patriarchal constructs. And it was another part of it was why is it so difficult to address the domination of women, which is still the biggest human rights abuse in the world every day, everywhere?
Mm.
And how does the domination of really the decline of the biosphere, how is this not registering? And then it became clear that for lack of a, I mean, these are general terms, women in nature, they're simply not prioritized in cultural understandings. In addition to, so when we have ecological decline, it's always measured against economic progress or economic decline. And that's a very false comparison.
Mm.
And then women, whatever rights women have gained in the world have been hard fought. And as we have seen in the past 10, 15 years, they're not easy to hold on to. We're seeing a decline of women's rights.
Mm.
We're seeing, so ecofeminism is in this matrix, it's in this roundabout of all these different kinds of ideas that to me are still highly relevant, but they're difficult for people to grasp. Because, for example, uh, women are still associated with their bodies,
Mhm.
with some kind of aesthetics, and then they're of course associated with pornography and the sexualization of women's bodies. And so, how do you get a discourse to say women are not our bodies? We are just a part of humanity. And so men's bodies don't get sexualized. Men's achievements don't are not considered gendered. But women's achievements are connected to being a woman. So this degradation of women continues all the time. So at the extreme end, it's of course sexual assault, and the difficulty of getting still 90% are not reported. And when they are reported, it's a less than 1% rate of getting a conviction. So that is a cultural blind spot to an extreme. It's interesting, and I'm interested in what you think about this, Kim, but in this work over 30, 40 years, ecological issues are now being able to be discussed. So there
Mm.
you can address them. Violence against women is still almost impossible to address, even though there's laws and there's systems and the
Mm.
judiciary has to deal with it. It doesn't seem to be reducing the amount. So ecofeminism is in this world of domination.
Yeah.
But ecofeminism comes in many forms. So some want to return, women in nature are higher than men in culture. To me, that's not particularly advantageous.
Yeah.
Uh, Most ecofeminists are trying to deconstruct the hierarchical dualisms, not reaffirm them in a different way. So
Yeah.
yes, women are more caring than men, but you see, caring it's a learned trait.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
not a biological essentialist trait.
Yep.
Women can be more nurturing, but we are trained from a very young age to be more caring. Come help mommy. Come, be helping and caring and cooperative instead of assertive and radical and,
Yep.
speak out, speak against.
Yep. Yep. It's a
Oh,
socialization process.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Even with the dolls versus the trucks. And I wonder because sometimes I've had friends who raise girls and boys and they say, I don't know where it came from, but my girl wants a pink princess outfit and my boy wants a truck and what? I didn't teach them that. And then it makes me think, well, the TV or even the tone of voice that you use, I think it's deeply, deeply subconscious.
Very. And there are some studies that say girl babies, infants are and toddlers are held closer to the body than boys.
Um,
And the emotional response to girls, if they're in distress, tends to focus on their emotional well-being, not go outside and build a fort. You know,
oh, channel it in this active, proactive way. Yeah.
it's so the socialization starts very, very, very early, this gender lore. So we live in a gender lore. And of course, in some more radically patriarchal cultures, it's all about taboos and how what women can wear and dress and walk and look. And
Yeah.
we have the same thing, but it's less scrutinized, but I think it is still there.
Yeah. I think it's still there and I think it's very unconscious and um like you said underaddressed. You didn't use that terminology, but I'm going to use that. And I noticed that because I've been teaching Christian feminist theology uh at a Jesuit university for 6 years now. And it's the way that people just are so uncomfortable in the room, even just talking about feminism. And I'm like, why can't we even just talk about it? It's like this elephant in the room the whole time. And I'm like, the whole reason we're here is to unpack this and talk about it. But it's like you don't want to do the shadow work of what it means to unpack what
No,
it
good
means
point.
to live in a patriarchal civilization. And I know that, and I'd love to hear you talk on this because I know in a previous podcast that I listened to of yours, you called it the F word. And I call it the F word in my class because,
Yes. I think feminism has a very bad reputation, and I also think it's entirely misunderstood because feminism is a social critique. It's
yeah,
not pro-women, anti-men.
yeah,
And I've also taught feminism for many, many years and ecofeminism. And one of the first things I have to say is this is not pro-women, anti-men.
yeah,
This is problematizing gender in our culture.
yeah.
But I have to say, even when everyone gets comfortable with that, as soon as we move to the subject of sexual assault,
Oh,
it's just that is an absolute taboo subject. So I
really?
think underneath the discussion of feminism is also the discussion of the oppression of women, but it gets reframed as, well, women just want a piece of the pie. And you think, well, no, women want a change of the recipe. This is not the
Yeah,
same thing.
yeah,
And in that recipe change, we
yeah,
have to address the oppression of women.
yeah.
We have to. And it is in, if you listen to someone from a rape crisis center, their analysis tends to be spectacular
Mm,
and never mainstream. I listen to, media people, they don't know what to do with this analysis of the statistics, even Canada, peaceful country, liberated in people's minds, gender equal, and it's still 6 out of 10 women who are sexually assaulted in Canada, still.
really?
So it's very high everywhere. So ecofeminism is not always looking at sexual assault, but I'm trying
Hmm.
to remember. So
Yeah.
all the Marxist feminists said the corner of feminism, the cornerstone is sexual assault. The
Oh,
rest is just extra.
huh.
Extra. So equal pay for equal rights, equal opportunity. I
Hmm.
can wear what I want, dress what I want, do what I want. These are all very great liberal values,
Hmm.
but they don't address the system of domination and the practices of domination that are embedded in patriarchal cultures. So
Yeah.
I think that it's easier to address the domination of the natural world and people, you and I have seen in our lifetime a slight shift of attitude
Hmm.
generally speaking, towards ecological respect.
Yeah.
And we've seen a liberal change in conversation of respect for women.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
there are true gains. There are true gains.
Do you think that so like I said, I've been teaching for about 8 years, and I noticed even in those 8 years, even just critiquing capitalism has gotten more acceptable. Are you saying that the similar thing has happened with dealing with the ecological crisis? Like
Yeah, I
speaking
would
about
say,
it?
yeah,
But it,
it's a
it was
good.
kind of taboo back then. You couldn't even speak to it. But now it's like, okay, well, here's a,
And I think we can talk about racism in better ways now. I think we can tackle it. If you make a racist joke, that's in urban educated areas that tends to be unacceptable. If you make a sexist joke and you say that's not funny, why do you not have a sense of humor, girl?
yes, that's the socialization process, though. And those are the subtle kind of reinscribing.
Reinscribing, so you become the problem.
Yeah.
So feminism in a classroom is the problem
Yeah.
rather than the social critique it's trying to point to.
Wait, say more about that, that feminism in the classroom is a problem rather than the social critique.
So people don't that people have so much baggage around the word feminism, which
Yeah.
is why it's the F word.
Yeah.
Uh, But they miss, unless you study feminist critiques of society, you don't understand how we're all implicated in it.
Yeah.
It's not men are bad, women are good.
Yeah.
It is some men are more privileged than some women, for sure, but women participate in patriarchy, you know,
Absolutely.
right? So women have to learn this critique, men have to learn this critique. It tends to be more receptive around LGBTQ plus because they have done some background analysis of gender.
Yeah.
The ego part doesn't always come in.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
But I find people miss the point and misconstrue feminism unless they study it. So
Yeah.
popular conversations around feminism at a popular level are really difficult.
Yeah.
Academia, in my opinion, is the only place you can actually
Mm.
use feminist theory. And that's another thing. Sorry, segue. But
No. Yeah.
it went from women's studies to feminist studies to gender studies academically.
Yeah.
What happened in the shift from feminism to gender is that gender identity has taken over the conversation.
Yes.
That's an acceptable conversation, but feminist critiques of society, like, where did they go?
Yes. Yes. Thank
It,
you. Yeah. No, I 100% agree because I'll have students who take my class and I'm doing the social critique, and it's the end of the semester. They're like, I can't believe it's not just men are good, women are bad, or women are good, men are bad.
yeah,
I'm like, no. And so now I've learned to day one be like, this is not social media feminism. Social media feminism is making my job 1,000 times harder. If you can just let that go, walk into the room with a blank mind, and we're doing social critique. We're also doing psychological work where, because I
exactly.
think about the frog and not the frog in the hot plate. It feels to me putting on your feminist glasses and doing a cultural critique is being a fish in a fishbowl, waking up to learning how to see water, right? Because
Right. Yeah,
patriarchy is the air we breathe. It's
the
in the
water we swim
way,
in.
it's the water we swim in. And so it's an ongoing process to wake up to this and see how it affects our everyday lives and perceptions and the way that we treat each other, the way we organize politics and government and family systems and
All of it.
inner, like our inner psyche. Like I always talk about um internal misogyny, and it's weird because I have men in my classes who, for the most part, just are so scared in the corner the whole time.
It's the difficulty is that it goes deep into our identity formation.
Yeah,
And and we've absorbed, as you said earlier, a lot of unconscious misogyny, both men and women, and also male privilege, both men and women.
right,
I mean, the system privileges men more, there's no denying it. But to assume just because of that, anyone is particularly aware of how that works
right.
is not the case.
Yeah.
But I will say, in the past 10 years, there's some very, very good work that's been done in men's studies
Mm.
and ecofeminist men's studies and I so now when I teach, I assign probably 40% of the material is from men's studies. So that helps the men not just sit in the corner and think, I can't wait for this to be over. It also shows not how you are implicated in a negative way, but how you have been formed in the same system.
Yeah.
And it's a good time to revise your own ethics and your own stance. So I find that has helped the transformation of, I mean, women can, I mean, I don't want to divide the genders because nothing is ever that clean. And, some men come in who are very, very progressive and aware. And, lots of women say, well, this just is how I was raised. It's like, yeah, but it's not ethical. And
Mm,
that we can't, that doesn't usually go over in a smooth way. So we have to find
yeah.
other doors in to say, so there's lots of material,
Yeah.
but how to present it so that people don't get spooked and when their identities are very shaped by patriarchy, even if they don't want to embrace it.
Yeah.
We were just speaking before we started about the rise of, let's say, the Christian alt-right in
Yeah.
Canada and the US.
Yeah.
Now, that is a white supremacist, misogynist movement. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not how it's presented. You have to dig.
Right.
But then if you meet people who embrace it, especially men, it's because they don't have any brotherhood. They don't have communities. This
Right.
is a place of belonging. The alt-right is a place of belonging where you can be like-minded. And the misogynist, white supremacist side just gets, it disappears as an overt factor.
Yeah. So I've I would love to hear you speak on this because I've noticed, you see the trend of feminism, and I see young women and they're empowered, and it's like, okay, cool, feminism did what it wanted. It was asking. I mean, yeah, for the listeners, there was
Feminism.
had not like did it.
Liberal feminism made some gains for
Yes,
sure.
that's a good way of putting it. Thank you. But there was the kind of whiplash response where now, and I feel for these young people. I'm like, I understand why you go to Joe Rogan for belonging. I understand because it's hard to grapple with the realities of our world. And like you said, belonging is a necessity.
It is a necessity. And, trad wives, whatever, traditional, like it gives women a role and a place of contribution. And I'm sure that's attractive to some. And men, so again, the binaries don't work, of course, in the real world, but we do all need a place of belonging. We also need to know we're contributing something good in the world. So, Joe Rogan, who personally I think is an asshole, he resonates with a lot of people,
Yeah.
but it's truncated. It's a very truncated conversation. You just take these little bits and say, this is reality, but it isn't. And
Yeah.
so, where in our society do people have the place to think,
Yeah.
analyze, to deconstruct, to say, it does that really make sense? You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't, you see, it doesn't make sense when you pause and analyze it. But I think it makes sense. It's got an emotional appeal, an
Yep.
identity appeal, and that's where it goes. And that's why it's attractive. But that's not analytic. That's not understanding.
Yeah. That's what I heard recently. I don't remember where it was, but they said Republicans get the emotion right, but Democrats get the
Analysis is their
analysis.
analysis is better
But it
for
is,
sure.
it's like getting the emotional, like grasping at it. The facts are incorrect and wrong and dangerous, but the emotional tone is oh, they're getting to the belonging. It's like that's why the conspiracy theory makes sense. Is
I read something when he who must not be named, the US president,
yeah,
him, um, I mean, that person's facts are incorrect. It's outright lying
it's lying.
much of the time. However, since this came in out of England, it was analyzing what fear is that person responding to.
What
And
fear?
it's the fear of not belonging. It's the fear of not having a purpose. It's the fear of economic decline. Hidden in that is the fear of ecological decline, but the answer to it is increased economics.
Hmm.
And so when ecofeminism comes in and says, okay, slow down, stop, we have to pull this whole thing apart, it doesn't have the emotional speed. It's time consuming to understand what's going on in society. You have to commit yourselves and you have to actually put your own values and beliefs aside.
Yes.
Those things take personal maturity, intellectual maturity. It doesn't even take a great deal of smarts. It takes a lot of time to slow down the conversation to say, he who must not be named just, well, I'll take Canada. Canada just passed a oil pipeline that's going through Indigenous land
Hmm.
without Indigenous consultation from a prime minister who said he would absolutely do consultation. Where's the public conversation on this?
Wow. Yeah.
See, and the same in the US. There's so many environmental regulations that
Hmm.
are being weakened. Where's the public conversation?
Yeah.
Right-wing, left-wing media, but there's not a conversation.
Right.
And to me, sorry, I'll finish and I'll just say that's why universities to me are so critical to invest in, because that is the only place where you can have an actually substantial debate.
Yeah. That's interesting because I'm thinking about the critique on the right of them saying, well, universities are just hubs for liberal thinking, but it's because you carve out time to sit and read and do the hard work of self-reflection, of critiquing the system, analyzing the system, analyzing your own complicity in them, or just thinking of who you are, right? These are the privileges, yes, but so that's kind of where he gets the emotional tone right. It's a quick one sentence quip to get at this very complicated dynamic and it co-ops the youth and it's
Does.
scary.
And I think it's speaking to fear. It
Yeah,
doesn't it doesn't sound like it's speaking to fear, but I think it is.
yeah,
So, yeah, it is a very hard time in the world with the rise of violence,
yeah,
with the rise of right-wing rhetoric, with the lack of public discussion spaces, with a decline in, I would call it a decline in interest in analysis. So, news media could have been, once was, perhaps a place of not bad analysis, but that's now all infotainment,
yeah.
small sound bites, where
Oh,
if
yeah.
I'm just listening to it, where do I get to discuss it? Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it factually based? Is it a value based? And I think that another difficulty for ecofeminism and any of us doing this work is that ethics are slow,
Yeah, they're slow.
slow process.
Yeah. It's a slow process. And I've noticed with my students that when it gets emotional that they just shut down. And everybody, especially in my feminism class, people enter into the room with already a preconceived notion, number one, and then already having decided what their stance is on these issues. And that's kind of what scares me, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm not convinced that people come to university knowing how to think.
No.
I- I'm not saying they don't think, but to think about something. So, in times I have taught in theology, I tell people you cannot ever use the Bible, God, or your beliefs as substance. These are not substance. You can say you believe this,
Yeah.
but you can't say it's true. You also can't say it's a belief.
Yeah.
So teaching in the realm of religion, especially with adherents, is particularly difficult because you are dealing with a lot of things you can't see in their belief structures.
Yeah.
And so when they shut down, um, you can't, what are you tinkering with? Their, fundamental belief in the afterlife or yeah. So, I often do ridiculous things like saying, I don't think there's a resurrection. And then you just watch the reaction and you just say, well, why do you believe there's a resurrection? And you think, no one can ever answer that question except to say, I believe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I can also believe the moon's made of green cheese. I'm incorrect, but I can believe it. I can believe what I want to
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah.
That's not knowledge. That's not data. That's not even opinion. So I think that's one of the reasons people shut down is how do you discern what knowledge we're talking about here?
Yeah. And so even proposing the question or posing this question is something that they've never really grappled with before because it was just a truth. To
It's a
them,
given.
it was a given because, like you said, it's a belief. And so I'm thinking about the work of Phil Arnold and Sandy Bigtree. Sandy Bigtree is a Mohawk woman, and she always critiques Christianity because she says it's a belief in indigenous worldviews and indigenous lifeways. It's material. We do
Mm,
these rituals because it's tied to the regeneration of the land. This is an actual, tangible, may I use
right.
the word resurrection? It's creativity, right? It's not.
It's certainly a practice. It's and lived religion or spirituality. It's lived.
Yeah, but it's
But
not. And I'd love to hear more about your take on the resurrection then.
so I'll tell you what Thomas Berry said, which I particularly like. He said, all world philosophies slash religions have an intuition that death is not final, including all environmentalists. We return to the earth, we return to stardust. So there is a deep intuition that death is not final. I would go with that.
Yes.
Then the form after death, to me, no one knows. Are we reincarnated? Are we resurrected? Do we return to the Tao? Are we returning to the Great Spirit? Do we just return to the earth? Like what? So to me, the question or the insight that death is not final is valid.
Yeah.
Answer to that is where I would have questions. I don't know if, it, no one's really come back to say I'm reincarnated or I'm resurrected or I'm restored or I'm, it belongs to an insight. It's not a fact.
Yeah.
So I just do that for provocative reasons, but not because I don't think the insight that death is not, I think death is not final, but I think that's also deeply scientific. It's
Yeah.
biospheric, everything is used and reused and renewed. Those are the dynamics of the biosphere.
Mm.
So if I was a materialist pragmatist, that's good enough. If
Yeah.
I need a religious insight to go with it, that's good enough. But I used to joke, and I will stop talking about the resurrection after that, but I'll say, when I'm resurrected, I want my 20-year-old body. That's the one I want to be resurrected in. And that usually stops the conversation sufficiently for people to realize you have no idea what resurrection means. It's just an idea.
Well, this is so funny that you bring this up because my husband always, Sam Mickey, he brings up the story of this church that he was raised in. And when they were talking about the resurrection, the priest actually said that. He said, where he proposed that question, you get to choose how you're resurrected. And it's like, well, how do you know that? That's a lot of power
Oh,
that you're kind of wielding. And and so someone in his immediate vicinity said, I want to choose my 20-year-old body. So
oh, good.
exact
Hey, that was a
example.
good era. That's the best era.
Oh
I
yeah.
think I think the difficulty in the realm of religion is it is the most profound human language,
Yeah.
but it's a highly symbolized language. So the questions that religions, spiritualities, or deep human experiences, the questions are trying to answer. Why are we here? Where did we come from? Where are we going? What's the meaning of the cosmos? Why is there suffering? Why do we love? What all these questions have to be answered all the time
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
eras. So the questions are good, but when we get very stuck on the answers and don't realize those answers come from very valid questions,
Mm,
then religions are a quest that is extremely profound,
yeah.
extremely rich. But
Yeah.
in the end, we are standing in front of mystery. In the end, we belong to realms of reality we barely know anything about,
Yeah. Yeah. And that
which
city.
command reverence. They command reverence and respect, and that is the right answer,
Yep.
is
And that's
reverence. Sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, don't no, don't apologize at all. But that's exactly kind of what I was thinking as well as you were talking. And it's like, but it's that sitting in the mystery that demands respect. And it's that level of respect that is necessary and required for dealing with these huge mysteries, right? We don't know. I think the desire to answer once and for all is it's a power move. And then when you have this leadership position in the church and you tell everybody this is a fact, then number one, you lose a depth and richness of human experience when you're questing on your own, trying to answer these questions. There's a beauty there, but then it also forces you to have that humility and the reverence. And I think those are what's called for in our current moment, whether that's dealing with relationships with women, personally or institutionally, or how to navigate living in an environment where we are made from the same stuff. And like you said, and I'm thinking about the resurrection, if you were going to translate this from an indigenous perspective, which I don't claim to be an expert in by any means, but kind of going back to Thomas Berry, that we are resurrected stardust. We are resurrected in our bodies. And that should be enough. That's enough. That right in there is the reverence and how to live ethically if we're aligned in that vision, I think is
Very challenging.
yeah. Do you have any advice for our listeners on how to live in that space?
I think the world of contemplation and quiet is necessary to live in the space. I think I think how to recognize mystery, and it doesn't have to be cosmic mystery. It could be actually watching ants.
Yeah.
It can be very, very local and minutia. But if one does it quietly for enough time, one realizes there's a complete otherness to ants and birds and flowers and pollinators and you see, then we belong to a much larger world. And that insight can transform our thinking, but that takes quiet and time. But it doesn't take extraordinary peak experiences.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. And, just watching birds, you realize birds are very old, first of all. They're a very old form of life, predating the Cenozoic.
Mm.
And yet, and they really are mysterious to us. You could learn a great deal of bird identification and know absolutely nothing about birds.
Yeah. Oh,
You
I
can
love that.
identify them, but you
Yeah.
don't know anything. You don't know anything because you'll never be a bird. So this is the humility and reverence. I mean, knowledge is important, but we don't own birds.
Yeah.
We can kill them, but we can't ever grasp them.
Yeah.
And so it's that space of what allows us to. So I use the word contemplation. I mean, I'm not even sure anybody under 20's heard that word. What is contemplation? What is quiet? What is the pause? So you were saying you do nature walks, is that what you said? Or
Yeah, so I teach another class I teach is nature immersion, and so I take students out like a 3 day, 2 night wilderness experience.
yeah, so that is where that experience. So here's what I think. People have that experience, but then they have to reflect on it. And
Yeah.
that reflection has to have certain elements in it for it to be integrated, other than what an incredible experience.
Yes.
Well, it's an incredible experience, but then you have to reflect on who you are then in the scheme of things. What is the scheme of things? The fact that we really know just about nothing,
Yeah.
like really,
Yeah.
and that is actually empowering, not diminishing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think I'm just going to say something about ecofeminism. To me, ecofeminism has lost the plot a bit on this theme in it. So ecofeminism um, has become very practical and also very postmodern. I'm not saying all of ecofeminism because there's many things, but case studies of women, nature, and they can often be anthropocentric, but that's the dominant form of ecofeminism now, and I would say not necessarily the most reflected form.
Mm.
There's a whole anti-religious stream, which I share in ecofeminism, but you can be anti-religious, but don't miss the depth of the questions religion is trying to ask, because those questions are perennial and they take us to the mysterious, abundant elements of the biosphere, but
Mm.
you don't have to have the language of religion.
Yeah.
You don't have to have it. You just have to find another way in.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I like what you said about needing the connection, or else it just becomes like I had that great experience on the weekend.
Yeah,
Because that's
yeah.
also, yeah. And also connecting it to, as you were talking about looking at ants, I was thinking about, I think it's a William Blake poem that says, I don't know if I'm misquoting this, but it's the same lessons that you can learn from the giant redwoods and the blade of grass.
Yes, yes.
And it's,
And my scorecard said, all you have to do is study a caterpillar and you will never have to go hear another sermon.
yes, oh, yes. I heard that once. I forgot about that. That's exactly the same thing.
Same
Yeah.
idea. So it comes back to the question, to what do we attend? What are we attentive to?
Yeah.
And I think the difficulty with nature experience in its capitalist form
Mhm.
is for you to have a peak
Yeah.
experience. What we're talking about is a peak experience, but it resituates you in the larger world. You don't get to take it in yourself and say, wow, I am so cool. I had that experience. It's, oh my goodness, look at the world in which we are embedded. Look at the earth systems of which we are a part. That's a very different kind of
Yeah.
interpretation.
Yeah, will you say more about that? Because I know that you've taken students out, right? You took a class to go, was it to Africa to watch lions?
Yeah, a couple times, Africa and yes, elephants mainly, but yes. I think when, let me do it differently. So if you have the privilege of being not too close, but close enough to see a wild elephant, you know you are in the presence of an absolutely magnificent creature. I mean, they are unbelievable. They have codes of ethics. They are, first of all, matriarchal. So there's another reason I quite like them.
Mm,
But they have codes of ethics and practices. They are one of the most caring species. They are absolutely nonviolent. I mean, they do fight, as all species will fight, but only under very extreme circumstances. So with elephants, it's probably easier to realize the majesty of the natural world than spending time with ants. But it's equally possible with ants.
yeah,
It it
yep,
I got interested in human elephant conflict, but I'm always been interested in human animal conflict and why animals are. So if you think of early ecofeminism, it was also about human and animals to say humans are one animal among many animals in an earth community. We are not,
yeah,
we have a certain techne, but elephants have a certain techne. Ants have brilliant techne, as do birds,
yeah,
as do bees. They're all operating out of their own life force, and so are we. But we don't attend to larger life forces than our own identities and
right,
agendas.
right.
So when you see an elephant, I mean, I have been to Africa many times and studied sometimes in Kenya, sometimes in Botswana, sometimes in South Africa. There are people who are in a Jeep, rush up to an elephant, take a picture, and they've internalized their peak experience.
Yeah,
So that's not how I do it. I make sure I go with someone who will park and we wait for hours for the herd of elephants to come by us and we don't move or make a sound.
mhm,
And so that's very different because you have to position yourself in their world without being intrusive
yeah,
or being in any way aggressive. And you have to be extremely quiet.
yeah,
So that is a very, see, it's the same thing. It's an elephant, but you see, they're not the same experiences. So people do like to accumulate peak experiences of nature, but this is not what you or I have been about in our time
yeah,
natural world. It's being quiet and attentive to something bigger,
yeah,
like your snake, the
yeah.
snake.
Yeah, the snake story, which I should do a podcast episode on that.
Shit, it's a good story.
But thank you for saying that because it's what brought me to this work because I started my my work in the natural world doing wilderness therapy, and it was backpacking, and it was incredibly masculinized. And that was the only term that I could come up with to comprehend or understand how first I felt like I didn't belong in that group and I didn't feel like I should be there. But it was but that subtleness, the contemplation, the intuition, the wanting to connect with nature and the students rather than just let's have, push through the pain, let's hike another 10 miles and then the trauma will resolve itself. It's like, no, there's another way of approaching both oneself and the natural world. And, for a long time, I thought that made me not belong in this space, but it was actually the thread that made me think deeper about the connection between
Right.
women in nature or humans and the wilderness. And so it's been a long journey to kind of come to this moment where I'm podcasting, unpacking, writing. But kind of going back to it's all about the approach, it's the subtleness, it's the reflection. Even you describing sitting there patiently, I imagine Jane Goodall, and that method was groundbreaking in terms of science rather than going to dominate, extract. It was
Yes.
sit back and learn and relate. And it's in that relating that you're gonna, and I even hesitate to use the terminology gather new information. But I think gathering is a non,
Get insights. I think you get insights into who you are and where you are and what are the other life forms.
yeah,
Um, was going to make a different analogy, but I've also, and you probably have too, done a lot of canoeing and I've done a lot of sailing.
Yeah,
And in both of those worlds, you have to be, especially sailing, absolutely attentive to wind and water, and you have no other power. That's it. So
yeah,
if you mess that up, well, you dump the boat or I mean, I have done a lot of ocean sailing, and if you want to feel the power of the natural world, that's a place when you've got,
yeah,
you know, 5 meter waves. They're very big. And you realize so the goal is to find experiences that teach us we are not master and commander.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if you're canoeing, if you're going to do whitewater, you're going to tackle the rapids and you're going to, okay, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go very quietly and try to go along the shore so that maybe at dusk and dawn, I can, without interfering, observe some beavers who finally feel safe enough to come out because I'm not making any noise.
yeah.
And then I can see something of the life. I'm trying to say what helps us immerse ourselves in this earth community.
Hmm.
And I think we are so attentive to this materialist realm and consumerism and things and success. And I think it takes over our psychic landscape
Yeah, yeah,
much. And because our minds will fill, I mean, they'll fill with whatever,
yeah,
but you have to deliberately fill it with this.
yeah. Well, and even the uprise in the kind of social media, it's consumption. It's a consumption of experience. Like I've
Exactly.
even heard in the wilderness world, people say, "Oh, I'm going to that place because I saw it on social media." Is that the reason you're going into the wilderness? Just so that you can get to this view, take a picture, and go home? Did you even have an experience? Did you?
Yeah, so that's what I mean. You collect experiences,
Yeah.
but you've actually learned nothing.
And
You've
you
not reflected it.
exactly. Yeah. You haven't had an experience. You've collected the experience, but you haven't actually had the experience because it takes
Right.
absorbing, digesting.
I think these are just another form of the acts of domination, is
Yeah. Yes.
collecting experiences of whatever, wilderness or water or wildlife or it is very worrisome to me that it's the same, everything is an instrument to, it's this anthropocentrism gone wild, but
Mhm.
now it's in an eco-tourist form, let's just say.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Even when I started the nonprofit and I got a bunch of emails of these adventure companies saying, I'd like to bring your group here or connect with me. And I'm like, number one, the reason I started a nonprofit was because I think it's ridiculous to spend like $2,000 to go on a 2 night wilderness experience. That's capitalism. And number two,
Right,
no, I don't need to go to another country to experience what I'm trying to experience by being in nature.
right.
But it's the weird assumption that when you say wilderness experience or nature connection or immersion, that this is what is meant, right? And that's kind of what I feel like we're fighting against. So in kind of wrapping up, we're gonna start, oh, let's pretend we're on a canoe. So you canoe, I kayak. I don't know why. I don't know. I canoed when I was in Michigan, but kayaks are more available in California, I guess.
Right, right.
Okay, so let's imagine that on this conversation, we're tandem kayaking or canoeing, and if we've gone on these, basically we've found the flow of the conversation, right? Which is not up to us. It's like, what are the wind conditions in the water? What direction are we going? And so we're gonna start kind of steering towards the end, in a gradual, gentle way. But I would like for you to speak on your emerging work and interest in awe, because I think what ecofeminist analysis, and we're both big fans of ecofeminist philosopher Val Plumwood, who is, I mean, if anybody out there wants like the best analysis of an ecofeminist framework, I would recommend
Absolutely.
Feminism
Very, very.
and Mastery of Nature. Yeah. Um, but so, we can critique the system, we can unpack our unconscious biases, but then I think wonder and awe, I think we both agree on is a way forward. And I definitely started teaching my feminism classes in that direction because even just in my own body, doing a whole semester on critiquing a system, at the end of the semester, I just feel depressed.
Yeah.
This is not sustainable. This is not what I want to pass on to the next generation. So balancing it with constructive ways to do the work, if you could speak on that.
So I'm a true believer in the idea that we need, so we are entering an era of ecological decline that is absolutely, from a biospheric point of view, unprecedented, but it's also unprecedented in human history. We don't have a vision that is sufficiently alluring to allow us. So as you know, I've worked a lot with the journey of the universe and the Earth community kinds of approaches. And to me, the balance is between analyzing sufficiently accurately what is actually happening and what are the forces at play. So if we talk about white nationalism, I think the force that's at play is men losing their privileged position, white men feeling threatened,
Yeah.
and fear of the future in whatever way, and not having a solid identity that they've had historically.
Yes. Yes.
But when we think about what is actually happening at a planetary level, it is beyond serious.
Yeah.
So, what is going to shift us? So, the thing about analysis and critique is that if you aren't sufficiently adequate, you don't get good solutions. But critique is just critique, right? It's a critique. So, where is the match to say, okay, if this is not a good depiction of the natural world and puts it in a utilitarian consumerist mode, what is an alternative? So to me, they have to be matched.
Yeah.
Over my 30 years of working on this, I do find people tend to like one or the other more.
Yeah.
And I think that could be a skill level, but it's also poor judgment to say critique without vision, critique without vision doesn't go anywhere, and vision without understanding. So you and I have talked at other times about the divine feminine and why we think that's nonsense, perhaps too strong, but in that zone of that. So to me, what is going to allow us to find a different understanding of the natural world outside of systems of domination?
Yeah.
And I think understanding domination is one facet, but it's true. If that's all you study, you will feel depleted
Yeah.
because in that is great understanding and no moving to a place of non-domination. So that is much harder work to move from systems of domination to systems of non-domination. So in one sense, critique is easy. Social change is hard.
Yeah.
Hard. So one facet of social change are these wilderness experiences that you are doing. That's one, you are trying to rewire someone,
Mhm.
give them, I mean, allow them to have the possibility of a deep experience and then helping them reflect on it.
Yeah.
All of the work on, so the natural world has been the greatest source of spirituality forever in all philosophical and religious traditions and spiritual traditions. It's the natural world. People's experiences of the natural world, however, are diminishing. They have utilitarian experiences. There is a great deal of interest these days in wonder, and especially wonder connected to ecological awareness.
Hmm.
It's not hard to experience wonder, even with ants and birds and butterflies and caterpillars. It's not hard, but it requires time and it requires a certain orientation.
Yeah.
So that's my interest is if some of us shifted from critique to it's not just vision, it's understanding the architecture of that shift so that we move away from relations of domination. So I'll just give you a small aside, but one of my students this term has been studying edible weeds.
Oh,
So I had her give a presentation this week in the class on edible weeds in my bioregion, which
nice.
is Ottawa Valley. And how do weeds actually, what we call weeds, why are they so restorative to the nutrients of the soil? What do they do? And her ecological knowledge was quite significant. So that to me, like I needed to pause, as did all the other people in the class. We had to pause to learn this.
Yeah.
I consider myself fairly ecologically knowledgeable, but I did not know that dandelion weeds are the most nutritious thing you will have in your garden.
Mm.
And then how to cook them, which is another step.
Yeah. They're bitter.
But to me, these small steps to ecological awareness. So what she did on, it was called Eat the Weeds. That was knowledge based, but it was also ecological knowledge and understanding. And then experiences of wilderness allow people to realize you are not the center of the universe. You're just not.
Yeah.
And experiences of wonder have an architecture to them, which is different than a peak experience.
Mm.
So experiences of a wonder and awe and reverence make people pro-social, more tolerant, much more inclined to nonviolence, much more able to deal with different viewpoints. I mean, this is actually the result of these experiences. In addition to wonder resituates you as not the center of the universe. That's the architecture of an experience of wonder, unlike a peak experience, which you might feel great and you might be in the same place, but two completely different architectures of experience, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So uh, I don't know what is going to help us out of this quagmire. I don't know.
Mm.
But I do think these small steps change individuals. They are forms of social change. And I think they have a certain potency.
Yeah.
And we can't drop critique. But if we integrated more of those, we might be able to have a different kind of influence.
Yeah.
It's much more transformative, but it's not easy to measure. Like
Yes.
critique, right? If we're
Yes.
in the classroom, did you get this analysis? You know, have you got Val Plumwood's 5 parts of how domination and patriarchy work? Yeah, they learned it. But integrating that, well, that's a different thing.
Yes. The unmeasurable, ineffable dimensions of
Yeah,
these experiences, they don't translate in the classroom. And as you were talking, I'm thinking about this idea of belonging, right? That
right.
one finds belonging in the natural world, which is the context through which we all emerge in. So the belonging that people are fleeing, the fear-based responses after all of this critical feminism, and it's not just feminism, it's everything
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right. Everybody needs some sort of belonging. But then to open up that space of this greater belonging that we all belong here. And it's not romantic, like you said,
Yeah,
it's
we emerged from, we belong to the earth,
and
the
we will
earth
go back to.
communities,
Yeah.
and we're composites of the earth community. I mean, that's what we are.
Well,
And so whatever intelligence we have emerged from the natural world. It's the natural world that has the intelligence, the earth. We are just a form of intelligence, maybe. And birds have their own, avian intelligence and ants. There are multiple kinds of intelligence, multiple kinds of, but we are all, we talk, we are all interrelated, but in fact, we are interrelated at every level,
yeah, absolutely.
atomic physics to intelligence. Our emotional sensibility is a product of earth processes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I hope that you write this new book on awe and ecofeminism because I would absolutely use it in my nature immersion classes to help reflect and
Look
context.
for
What was
that.
that?
I'll write it for you.
Okay. All right. Let's be in touch. Oh my gosh. Please. No, perfect. Because I always struggle with how to integrate the experience in a tangible way that makes sense and that I'm trying to ground in the the ethic that I'm calling for. And so I've used your books in my class in the past because they're very comprehensive. And so, all right, I
I
will.
think I'm going to just go, since we both work in academia,
Yeah.
I think the intelligence of the embedded in the experiences you're trying to elicit can be brought into the classroom. I
Ooh.
think there is I think that these are not experiences that are aside from academia. They have a structure, they have an orientation that can be actually brought into the classroom and reflected upon
Yeah.
without I think we can do so much more
Yeah.
with these depth experiences in
Yeah.
academia.
I think so. I would like to hear your chapter on that. It will be in the book. I'm telling you this.
Posted.
All right, Heather. Well, this has
Nice
been
to chat, Kim. So nice.
so nice. Absolutely. Any last thoughts you want to share, or we can just,
Yeah, we all need to do the work.
we all need to do the work 100%, and now more than ever.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and your insights. It's been such a pleasure and a joy and so eye-opening. Thank you so much.
We'll be in touch.
Sounds great. This podcast has been brought to you in collaboration with the Luce Foundation, the American Academy of Religion, and the Wild Women nonprofit. Thanks so much for joining us. Please follow us so you can keep returning to the fire. And in the meantime, be wild and be well.